Imagine this. The sister wives' world turns upside down when new shocking revelations emerge about Cody Brown's strange behavior, his obsession with control, and his crumbling grip on the women who once called him their husband's secrets spill. Out as Mykelti and Tony finally break their silence, revealing what's really going on behind the cameras. From hidden manipulation to staged love stories and emotional mind games, the truth behind Cody and Robyn's so-called perfect marriage is darker than anyone imagined, and tonight we're pulling back every layer of this twisted family dynamic. So stay tuned, because what you're about to hear changes everything. Cody Brown once stood as the symbol of plural harmony, the man who claimed to build a family around faith, unity, and shared love. But now everything is unraveling piece by piece, and those who were closest to him are the ones exposing the cracks that were always there from the outside. The Brown family once seemed unique, but functional, a large family living by their beliefs, but behind the closed doors of polygamy. Something darker was brewing. Whispers of resentment, manipulation, and jealousy began to echo through every corner of their homes. And what started as a dream of spiritual unity has now turned into a web of distrust and emotional chaos. Mykelti and Tony have recently come forward, painting a shocking picture of how Cody's control over his daughters, especially Aurora, has spiraled into something deeply unsettling. They describe how Cody's words and actions show a man who refuses to let go of his outdated sense of ownership. How he treats his daughters as if they belong to someone else, instead of being individuals with minds of their own. The revelation about Cody telling Aurora's boyfriend that kissing her was like kissing another man's wife stunned everyone. It wasn't just awkward. It revealed how deeply he's still trapped in the mindset that women exist within a man's claim, a thought pattern rooted in the polygamous belief system that Cody claims to have moved away from. Yet his behavior shows otherwise. Mykelti's frustration with her father was evident, as she made it clear that no one owns another person, that love and affection are choices, not possessions. Tony agreed, saying that it was disturbing to hear such words from a father to his adult daughter, and that it highlighted how much Cody's thinking is still stuck in a world where control and dominance are disguised as protection. The audience could almost feel the tension in their words and their tone, because it wasn't just about a kiss. It was about decades of conditioning and power dynamics coming to light, but the revelations didn't stop there. As Mykelti and Tony continued talking, they touched on how Cody might actually be blaming his sons-in-law for why his married daughters no longer want to have a relationship with him, instead of reflecting on his own actions, or how his choices created distance. He has convinced himself that outsiders are responsible, that these men somehow turned his daughters against him. It's a theory that says more about Cody's mindset than it does about reality. He has always needed a reason, outside himself, for why his relationships fall apart. And this time he's found a new target for his frustration. Tony and Mykelti described this pattern as one of emotional deflection. Cody's inability to face his own failures leads him to create villains in every chapter of his life. Whether it's former wives, children, or in-laws, there's always someone else to blame. And in the latest episode, the tension becomes even more visible, as Cody spins bizarre stories about being contacted by mysterious women, one moment claiming they chastised him for leaving plural marriage, and the next claiming they wanted to marry him. It's a contradiction that doesn't make sense to anyone but Cody, and perhaps that's the point. Confusion creates attention, and attention keeps him in control. Because as long as people are talking about him, they're not looking too closely at his mistakes. Robyn appears to play her part in this delicate dance too. And Mykelti and Tony hinted that Cody's ongoing references to polygamy are less about belief and more about manipulation. They believe he uses the idea of plural marriage as a psychological leash on Robyn to keep her emotionally bound to him, because even though she may no longer actively want sister wives, she still wants the image of being part of something sacred, something chosen, and Cody knows that. So he dangles the concept in front of her like a promise that will never be fulfilled, a way to remind her that if she leaves, she loses her divine standing in their faith. It's a cruel game of spiritual guilt and emotional control, one that Mykelti and Tony say they've seen before. They pointed out that Cody's deep fear of losing Robyn drives him to invent these half-truths about women contacting him because it fuels the illusion that he's still desired, still relevant, still the center of the story. They describe this behavior as desperate but deliberate, a man trying to prove he hasn't lost his power while everything around him collapses. Mykelti even compared it to how Cody used to pretend he cared about his other wives to keep Robyn interested. making her feel like she had to compete for his affection. It's the same tactic now, but with different props this time. Instead of rival wives, it's imaginary women from emails, imaginary proposals, and imagined moral debates about polygamy that conveniently never lead anywhere. And what's most telling is how Robyn seems to tolerate these stories, even participate in them, because as long as the illusion continues, she remains the central figure in Cody's life, the spiritual wife, the chosen one. Yet that title comes with its own prison, the pressure to appear faithful, loyal, and devout, even when the foundation of the relationship is cracking. Cody's fear that Robyn might one day turn back to the church and be reassigned to another man under their belief system adds another layer of insecurity to his behavior, and so he plays these emotional games to keep her anchored to him, to make her believe that even in chaos, she must stay. It's a tragic irony. The man who once preached unity now survives on manipulation and fear. His own insecurities have become the script of the show, a show that is becoming more fiction than family. And as the camera keeps rolling, the audience sees less of a husband and father, and more of a man performing a role he no longer understands. As the cracks in Cody Brown's carefully built image deepen the truth about how he interacts with his family, becomes harder to ignore. Mykelti and Tony's revelations cut deep, exposing not just the dysfunction of a man, but the patterns of an entire belief system that has shaped him for decades. They describe how Cody has always viewed his daughters through the lens of possession and protection, not independence and freedom. It's a mentality that might have once been normalized in their polygamous culture. But now it feels outdated and unsettling when Mykelti talked about her father's treatment of Aurora. It wasn't just frustration, it was a reflection of years of watching her dad apply the same rules of ownership he once used in his marriages to his own daughters. The statement that a man kissing his daughter was like kissing another man's wife felt like a flashback to those rigid days of religious hierarchy, where every woman belonged to a man and every man was a gatekeeper of virtue. Tony's reaction to this was immediate, calling it not just misguided but damaging. It's not the kind of mindset that encourages trust or growth. It's one that stifles it, keeping women emotionally dependent on male approval. Mykelti emphasized that no one belongs to anyone, that every person is responsible for their own choices and affections. And the moment Cody spoke those words, it reminded her of how little he's evolved. Despite claiming that he's left the old ways behind, he's still trying to control what he can, because control is the only thing he has left. The more his wives and children distance themselves, the tighter he tries to hold on to those who remain. And Aurora, now caught between loyalty to her mother and independence as a young woman, finds herself in the center of that struggle. It's why Mykelti believes that the meeting between Aurora's boyfriend and Cody wasn't spontaneous at all. She thinks it was orchestrated, designed for television, a setup to create drama and give Cody a platform to display his brand of fatherly authority. The awkwardness of that encounter wasn't accidental. It was scripted not by the producers, but by Cody himself, who has learned how to turn every real-life discomfort into a storyline. Mykelti explained that in the world of sister wives, everything needs a narrative, a moment to fill the episode, a conflict that keeps people watching. So even real relationships become part of a constructed plot. She speculated that Aurora and her boyfriend had already been serious for quite some time before filming began, that they were not in the early stages of romance, but perhaps already deeply committed, yet to introduce him on screen. They had to create a moment of tension, something that could be filmed, something that would keep Cody at the center of it all. And that's exactly what happened. Cody's disapproval became the dramatic spark, the uncomfortable silence, the moral dilemma, and the fatherly confrontation that could fill minutes of screen time while feeding his image as the stern yet devoted patriarch. Mykelti called it a performance, and Tony agreed, saying that Cody's involvement in his children's relationships only happens when there's an opportunity for attention. Otherwise, he remains distant, detached, and uninvolved. They pointed out that Cody's recent obsession with defending his values comes conveniently at a time when he's losing relevance within his own family and the show. The less power he holds in real life, the more dramatic his behavior becomes on screen. Because attention has become his new form of validation. Every emotional explosion, every contradictory speech, every tale about mystery women or imagined proposals is another way to stay visible, to remind people he still matters in the Sister Wives universe. Robyn, on the other hand, has her own reasons for playing along. Mykelti believes that Robyn's fear of losing Cody is just as strong as Cody's fear of losing her. Not because of love, but because of what leaving would mean for her place in the faith. And in the public eye, she's still connected to relatives within their religious community, and leaving Cody could mean losing both her spiritual identity and her public image. So she plays her part in the game, subtly encouraging Cody's delusions while maintaining her role as the loyal wife. The irony is painful. Robyn once entered this family under the promise of plural unity, but ended up in isolation. Now she and Cody live in a world of shared performance, each enabling the other to keep the illusion alive, while behind the scenes their marriage becomes a constant negotiation of insecurity, guilt, and silent resentment. Mykelti and Tony said it best when they described Cody and Robyn's relationship as a transaction of emotional needs. He provides her with a sense of purpose, and she provides him with devotion. They both depend on each other's fears more than each other's love. And that dependency is what traps them in this endless cycle of appearances and half-truths. What's even more disturbing is how their dynamic affects the children. Cody's favoritism, for the youngest kids, especially those from Robyn's side, is no longer subtle. Mykelti said he is far more affectionate toward Brianna and Ariella than he ever was toward Truly. And that pattern has existed for years. Cody sees youth as loyalty. Because young children can't challenge him, they can't see through the inconsistencies the older ones can. And Robyn knows this. She keeps the children sheltered, maintaining their innocence. Because innocence keeps Cody engaged. She has learned that the more independent they become, the more distant Cody grows, and so she protects his involvement by keeping them emotionally dependent. It's an unspoken strategy, one that might not come from cruelty, but from survival in a marriage where love is measured by control. Mykelti found it both heartbreaking and predictable, and she didn't shy away from saying so. The more she spoke, the clearer it became that the world of Sister Wives has shifted from a faith-based family experiment to a stage of emotional survival, where each player clings to their role for relevance, protection, or stability. And Cody, as always, stands at the center of it, orchestrating drama to fill the void where genuine connection used to be. In the end, the story of Cody and Robyn Brown isn't just the downfall of a reality TV couple. It's the unraveling of an illusion that millions once believed in. Sister Wives began as a series meant to show love, faith, and family against the odds. But what it became was a cautionary tale about control, pride, and the slow corrosion of trust. The emotional wreckage left behind, the broken bonds, the shattered dreams, the children trying to make sense of fractured households, is far more haunting than any reality TV storyline could ever capture. Cody once stood as the patriarch of a sprawling family that prided itself on unity and understanding. Yet, as the cameras rolled year after year, what viewers really witnessed was the disintegration of a man too stubborn to see that love isn't ownership, and loyalty isn't submission. Robyn's role in the downfall remains one of the most debated. Was she a victim of circumstance or the architect of her own isolation? The public saw glimpses of tears and confusion, but behind those scenes were whispers of manipulation, favoritism, and carefully crafted narratives designed to keep the spotlight on her and Cody, even as the rest of the family faded into resentment. What's clear is that Robyn became both the symbol and scapegoat of everything that went wrong. Her relationship with Cody now stands as a monument to what happens when control replaces compassion and ego overshadows empathy. The Brown family's story no longer fits the mold of reality TV entertainment. It has evolved into something deeper, almost tragic. Christine, Janelle, and Meri each walked away with scars, but also with newfound strength. Their departures, once seen as rebellion, now look like liberation. They became examples of courage for anyone who's ever been trapped in a cycle of guilt and control, showing that breaking free isn't betrayal, it's survival. And as they rebuild their lives outside Cody's shadow, audiences have started to see who the real leaders were all along. As for Cody, the empire he tried so desperately to hold together collapsed not because of outside forces, but because of the very traits he refused to confront: arrogance, denial, and an inability to see love as something shared rather than commanded. His downfall wasn't sudden. It was years in the making, hidden behind the veneer of faith and family unity. Now, as the dust settles, it's clear that the show's final chapters aren't about plural marriage or family drama. They're about accountability. In the end, Sister Wives revealed more about human nature than anyone expected. It exposed how fear can masquerade as faith, how control can disguise itself as leadership, and how one man's obsession with order destroyed the very thing he was desperate to preserve. And now, as viewers watch the Brown family go their separate ways, one truth remains undeniable. Sometimes the family you lose is the only way to find yourself.